Dear Texas Radio is sponsored by these companies.
Testing 1, 2, 3. The third annual short story contest begins March 1st and runs through July 31st. Enter your short story for a chance at prizes and getting published. To learn more about this annual event, please visit our website at txshorts.com.
You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage Texans to drop everything and read. Your host for today is B. Allen Bourgeois.
And welcome to Dear Texas Radio. I am B. Allen Bourgeois, your host for tonight's show. And we do encourage people to drop everything and read, but please don't break anything. We've had that happen, and we really don't want to encourage that. But we do want to encourage you to pick up a good book, and that's what this show is about, introducing Texas authors to the world and hopefully help them find a good book by one of these authors. And a good one to start off the night with is with Lorri Allen. Welcome, Lorri.
Hey, Alan, it's always good to talk with you. Thanks for letting me be on this side of the microphone.
Yes, you are an occasional hostess for the show, and we do appreciate that. But it's our pleasure to be helping promote you and your book. And with that, we will be talking about It's All Good News. So let's start right off the bat. Why that title?
Well, I have been a journalist my whole career. I got a degree in broadcast journalism and was asked to start speaking at churches and a few other events. And I would tell people, you can always find the silver lining. You can always find the rainbow after the storm. And somebody said, no, you always cover the bad news. You journalists, it's always crisis, it's always catastrophe, it's always finding the dirt on people, it's yellow journalism, and now people might say it's all fake news. But I would beg to disagree. And, if you have a positive outlook, you can find the good in something. And so I started writing some essays because writing a whole book like you and others do, Alan, that intimidated me. I didn't think I could sit down and write from start to finish. But writing just a short essay, like a short broadcast story, wasn't as intimidating. So someone said, just start with a newsletter and write one essay a month or one newsletter a month and send it out to people who you're friends with or who hear you speak and want to sign up for it. And after so many months, you'll have enough essays for a book. And so that's what happened. I started doing these essays 17 years ago in January 2000. And after about 5 years, I was very disciplined about it. I did one every month. So I had 60 essays after 5 years. And I picked the 52 ones that I liked the best or I'd gotten the best response from and put them into a book with the idea that somebody could read an essay once a week.
So after you did the first book, we're talking about now 17 years from the time you started till now, and you did that in the first 5 years. So you have still 12 years. Have you been doing essays in those 12 years?
Well, that's a real good question. I haven't been as disciplined in the last few years, but I probably do have enough to make another book, so I should do an It's All Good News Part 2 or the sequel, or sometimes it's bad news or something like that, huh?
We have enough bad news. I'll keep encouraging you to do more good news.
Okay. I have a friend who's also an author, and I had a series of calamities befall me, and she said, I like you better now that you've had some bad things happen to you because you're not such a Pollyanna. You're more realistic. And I thought, I don't know if that's the kind of friend I want.
But you mentioned authors, and there's something else we'll get back to in a moment. But of authors, you're also married to one, correct?
I am, my sweet husband. And, he was writing when we started dating, and one of the first things, I don't even know if we'd had a real official date yet, he said, he knew what I did. We met at work, and he said, I'd really like you to read some of the stories I've written. And I said, okay. And I was just impressed that he had the discipline to write at all. Busy, he traveled for his job, so he was always blowing and going and working hard. And so that was one of the things that impressed me, is that he had the discipline to write, and he was a pretty good writer. He writes fiction, and I mostly write nonfiction. He writes long form. He can sit down and write a novel. He can write a screenplay. So we're different enough that there's absolutely no competition. We are each other's president of the fan club. We want each other to succeed. He's good at things I'm not good at, and I'm good at things he's not so strong in. So it really makes a nice complement and a nice team.
Great. And back to the book, the little vignettes, essays you've been doing. The best way to describe them is that it is a slice of life. You have a lot of different things relating to that. So out of all the ones that you put in the book, is there one or two particular favorites?
Oh, people say that's like asking what my favorite child is. I don't have children, but I do have dogs, Alan. We have 4 dogs, and that's like asking which one is my favorite dog, and I love them all for different reasons. But there are some stories that are special because I told them over and over. For instance, the one about how my husband and I met and fell in love and got married. I don't want to give it all away, but it's a sweet story, and it had to do with the night before we met. He had a dream, and he dreamed that he was getting married, and there was a woman, his bride, was walking toward him down the aisle, and he couldn't see her face, but she had an off-the-shoulder wedding gown. So I'm condensing the story to a very, very short version. But the next day we met, and he looked at me funny the day we met, and he said later on, the minute I saw you, I knew that you were the girl in my dream, and that's why I asked you to wear an off-the-shoulder wedding gown. And women, they hear the whole story, and they hear that part, and they go, oh, that's so romantic. And men roll their eyes and say, he made every bit of that up. And I choose to just say, well, I'm the girl of his dreams, and we will live happily ever after. So maybe that's part of the writer in him, embellishing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You've been in journalism for a long time. As you mentioned earlier, trying to find those silver linings in stories, it can be done, and we really encourage people to find the positive in any aspect. Even when they've been mulled over by a tornado, there's still something good that can happen from it. But isn't it still a challenge for you?
Oh, it is. It is very much a challenge. I will tell you something that's going on in our lives right now that 8 years ago, I didn't know if it would ever have a happy ending. We were in the Great Recession. Mark and I both had jobs in Atlanta, and we, as a husband and wife, it's sometimes the broadcasting industry can be very competitive. So sometimes it's hard to find jobs in the same city. We had been actually recruited for a company in Atlanta, and during the Great Recession, money woes, whatever, we both are working for the same company, and we get laid off on the same day. And we had bought a house about 8 months prior. And so November 30th, 2009 was the last day we were both employed. We got a little bit of severance, and we were people of faith and confident and positive that everything would work out. We had a feeling of peace about it. And indeed, Mark got a job in Arizona probably within a month or two. So we had hope. But we had this house that we had purchased, and we like to eat. Alan, you've probably seen us eat. We like to pay our bills, and so here we had this mortgage, and we didn't have any source of income on the horizon until Mark got this job. But we were thinking, what are we going to do? Well, we'll put the house on the market. And we got it on the market pretty quickly that year, But as you may remember, maybe you were in Texas probably, so Texas wasn't hit so hard, but the housing market in several states was just non-existent. And we had that house in Atlanta on the market over 12 months, and occasionally a person would look at it, but nobody was interested. We couldn't give it away. And I think we would have given it away maybe in exchange for the mortgage payment, but there was just no interest. And after about a year and a half, we said, let's do anything. Let's just try to rent it. We just can't carry this bill with us anymore. And fortunately, we were blessed with renters, and they stayed in the house about 5 years or so, and they left. They had some things come up in their life, and they left a few months ago, and we put the house on the market. After doing some repairs, we got an offer in 2 days, and next week we close on it, and we're actually going to make a little tiny bit of money on it. And, Alan, that's a situation where, at the time, 7, 8 years ago, I thought, you think of all the horrible things that can happen to you. You could go bankrupt. You could be foreclosed upon. You could ruin your credit forever. I mean, you think of all these, we're going to starve to death. I mean, when you really think of how bad it can go. But when you start thinking about how good it can go, hey, you know what? We hang on to this and we ride this wave. There will be something good come out of this in the end. And so I have a positive story that hopefully will encourage other people is, we didn't know where our next meal was coming from, but now we're able to look back and say, hey, you know what? It is all good news. Everything works out.
That's great. And congratulations on that. And that's actually a perfect
Thank you.
ending to this segment of the show. It's All Good News by Lorri Allen. Her book is available. Lorri, tell us where people can find your book.
Well, they need to go to our website, don't they, Alan? Yeah, books.
Well, what is your website first?
Oh, you know what? That's why I love Texas Authors, because I don't sell my book on my website. I sell it at texasauthors.com. But you know what people can do at my website, which is Lorri.com. You have to spell Lorri the way my parents did, Lorri. They can sign up for that newsletter, because I may not send it out every single month, but I do still send it out. And I would love to have people who would like a positive message like that to subscribe to it.
That is great. And with that, we will step away and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll be right back.
Dear Texas would like to thank our sponsors. Testing 1, 2, 3. McKinney, Texas's quaint downtown square, rich in history, entices visitors to discover its more than 100 eclectic shops and eateries. With origins dating back to 1848, McKinney is situated just 30 miles north of Dallas and 40 miles south of the Oklahoma border. One of the country's fastest-growing cities, McKinney maintains its authentic small-town atmosphere, which is palpable when exploring the downtown streets, taking a walk on one of the city's many nature trails, or even visiting the city's Croatian-style village. Learn more about what awaits you in this picturesque North Texas city at www.visitmckinney.com or call 888-649-8499. EBG 247, where you can find ebooks galore 24 hours, 7 days a week at ebg247.com. From concept to casting, recording to post-production, Spoke Media is dedicated to creating a superlative listener experience. www.spokemedia.io. Texas Authors Institute of History is the only museum in the country dedicated to a state's author group. You can learn about past Texas authors and their books, along with new and exciting authors that write in a variety of genres. To learn more, please visit our website at texasauthors.institute. Wimberley Valley Tourism welcomes people to explore the many fine shops, restaurants, and wineries that make Wimberley special. More at wvtla.com.
You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage Texans to drop everything and read. Your host for today is B. Allen Bourgeois.
And welcome back to Dear Texas Radio. We hope you have been enjoying the first segment with our guest today, Lorri Allen, who has written a book, excuse me, and it is entitled It's All Good News. And we've been talking about how to look at life with positive thoughts, looking for a silver lining, things of that nature. But with your background, Lorri, it is in journalism. You have been on TV as a reporter, and you do reports and things of that nature. Do you find that doing journalism and having faith be in conflict at times, especially now with all this fake news and stuff going on?
Yeah, almost my whole career, I've had people accuse me or my industry, oh, y'all are just a bunch of knee-jerk liberals. Or I even went to Sunday school. It was a new church that Mark and I had started attending, and the Sunday school, first of all, it was a feat to get Mark to go to Sunday school. He had been, when he was 3 or 4 years old, he had visited a church when he was at his grandmother's house, and he colored Jesus purple, and the teacher spanked him and stuck him in the corner. I don't think he'd been to Sunday school since this time. And so the teacher's talking and says something like, well, I don't know how they got off on the media, but the teacher says something like, well, you can't be a journalist and be a Christian. And here it is, our very first time to visit this class. And I raised my hand because I'm not going to just let that comment go by. And I said, excuse me, yes, you can. I am a journalist, and I consider myself a Christian. Well, you could cut the tension with a knife, and we never went back to that Sunday school class again. In fact, I don't think we attended that church much longer either. But I think people do know about faith-based media now, and that there are Christians in the media. But when you think sometimes about the national media and you hear them speak, I mean, even on morning television, I love certain anchors, but when I hear some of the language that comes out of their mouth, I think, oh, if I had children, I couldn't just have this television station on. That's just not appropriate. And here it is, it's 7:30 in the morning, and somebody's using a word that I won't repeat on our radio show. So, yeah, I understand why people are concerned about the media, but there's this movement called media literacy. And it's to help people understand that we have the First Amendment for a reason. I'm going to get on the soapbox here, Alan. We have information. We have the freedom of the press. We have the freedom to assemble. We have the freedom to speak like you and I are doing right now. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful document that was created as part of our Constitution. And this First Amendment and the rights and freedoms that it gives us, we need to make sure that it's always protected and that it never goes away, because if something were to damage it, you and I couldn't talk about our government. We couldn't meet. We couldn't have our meetings. We couldn't write about anything we want to write about. And from all the variety that we get with Texas authors, all the different genres, all the different stories that the authors tell and write about, that some of those just wouldn't be able to be printed. So this First Amendment is so important. And with media literacy, we explain to people, yeah, you know what, there might be a news outlet that is supported by certain sponsors, or by certain political parties might like a certain newspaper or a certain television network better than others, or they might see another one as more liberal. So what you've got to do if you really want to be media literate is to listen to all of them, and maybe not for a long time, but at least be familiar so that you know the difference between reading a news article, a basic who, what, when, where, why to get your information, and a news editorial, which is someone sharing an opinion or a commentary, and know the difference between a feature story that may have a little bit more flair to it, may have something to pull you in and draw you in like a novel, using novel writing techniques, versus a story that's meant to educate you and to let you know about what's going on in Washington or Austin. Or, journalism is good because it can help change our world, but it can also make us all so much more educated. I'll step down off the soapbox now.
Well, I fully appreciate you giving your opinion on that. It's very important at these times. But we're going to move on to some of the coaching that you do. Last year, you talked at the Authors Marketing event, and you helped authors understand what reporters are and what producers are, and help them get a better sense of how to work with them in order to promote themselves in their books. So with that in mind, is there a couple of little bits of tidbits you can share tonight before your next talk in July?
Sure. You know, authors can be very introverted and isolated. They sit behind their computer screen and they write, and they love it. And that's great. We wouldn't have these wonderful books if they didn't do that. So for some of them, to put them in front of a television camera or even in front of a reporter and be asked questions, it can be quite intimidating. So part of it is just letting the authors know the rules of the game. What's going to happen? What is a reporter typically going to ask you? And how can you be best prepared? And there are different nuances for, say, a reporter who might be writing a magazine article or an article for online, or a television reporter is going to be on a really tight deadline and blow into your office and turn a light on you and get the camera rolling and try to get those sound bites just as quickly as possible. And you may just feel like it was a whirlwind. And then when you see the finished product, you feel like it was all left on the cutting room floor and they just used a few seconds here and there. So just knowing what to expect can be so helpful for people so they won't be blindsided. And another tip that I always tell authors is go ahead and prepare questions. The host or the reporter may not use those questions at all, but the act of preparing them will help you as an author think through what you might be asked and have some answers ready to go. And then you can sometimes work those answers into your responses, at least parts of them. Everybody's going to ask you, tell us what your book's about. And most people are going to say, how'd you come up with the idea for it? And then they're usually going to say, well, what are you working on now? So those are typically 3 questions that every author will get.
Right. And to that point, since you had mentioned that a lot of authors are introverts and shy in some respects, what you just mentioned not only applies to TV and radio interviews and things of that nature, but to the everyday person who walks up to your table at a book festival. That same concept can be used for those people. I mean, is that pretty much about right, or can you add something to that?
Yeah. You know, Alan, you and I hear the authors that get interviewed on Dear Texas Radio, and a lot of them tell us how much they love the book festivals because they get to meet real readers and talk to them about what they like and what's interested. So, you know, even introverts like to hear from their fans and know what readers like. So just because you might be an introvert doesn't mean that you don't like to have a good conversation, but sometimes building that confidence can help you when someone walks by your book table to say, hey, you interested in mysteries, or are you interested in whatever you're offering? And if the person says, oh, no, you know, I like romance, well, you can smile and say, oh, go over there to so-and-so, or, oh, well, you're at the right place. Come talk to me about my latest book. So sometimes it's just not being scared to make that first pitch, that first, what do you call it when you're throwing out the fishing line? That first hook? Yeah, fishing line. Reach out and grab somebody.
There you go. To that extent as well, and I just lost my thought. So we will move on.
I'll help you. I can give you a hint for people who are going to, because some of this works for presentations too, and sometimes authors will be asked to do a reading or talk about their book maybe at a session. So something that can help you both if you're going to be on radio or television or you're going to make a presentation, is to make sure that you're well hydrated. Because I've got a big liter of water right here, and if I didn't want to slurp too bad, I would take a big slurp just for the sound effect. And I've got another, in case that goes out, I have another little can of soda over here. And if you're dry-mouthed or your throat gets dry, well, first of all, it can hurt, but you can also make a dry mouth sound like, and that's not attractive, but it's also a sign of nervousness. And if people, they may not even realize what they're hearing, but if they hear something that subconsciously makes them think that you're nervous, they're going to start questioning it. It's going to distract them, and their mind might wander, and they're not hearing about your book. They're not hearing what you want them to hear, and so you may have lost a potential reader.
Mm-hmm. And with that, sorry, I was absorbing everything you were saying there. So
you want me to keep talking?
No, unfortunately, we don't have much time. So I do want to ask the one question that you had mentioned a moment ago. What are you working on now?
My dad and I are working on a project together, and he's done all the heavy lifting, and it's a book that I think could be a game changer. It's sort of a self-help book, but it's got a little tiny angle of historical fiction based on some of his experiences in the Army about 55 years ago when he was stationed in the Philippines. And I don't want to give too much away because maybe one of these days you and I will be talking about that book with my dad, and that would be a lot of fun. But it's quite interesting to work on a project with a relative. Dad, I love
I can imagine it is. Yeah. I've often thought about doing that myself, but it's like, I don't know. It's all the different aspects of it and stuff. Well, we're almost out of time. So if you would be kind enough to remind people where they can sign up for your newsletter and your website and things of that nature.
All righty. If you would like to be on the Good News newsletter, please go to my website, Lorri.com, Lorri.com. If you're interested in some soundbite coaching, you want to know more about making better presentations or how to sound confident, compelling, and clear when you talk to the news media, go to soundbitecoach.com, and bite is spelled B-I-T-E. And if you want to buy some books from me or some of our other wonderful authors in our association, go to books.txauthors.com.
And you will be at the Texas Authors Marketing Event July 28th through the 30th. And you'll be giving 2 classes there about soundbite coaching and talking with producers and things that we've talked about. So I look forward to seeing you there. You did a great job last year, and I know you'll do another great job this year. And we thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Dear Texas would like to thank our sponsors. I'm Alex Anthony, your announcer. For all inquiries regarding voiceover, narration, and announcing services as heard on this program, please make contact through voxluxstudio@gmail.com, voxluxstudio@gmail, or you can call 512-537-6077. Thank you for listening and for your support. Thank you for listening to Dear Texas Radio. To learn more about Dear Texas and its literacy programs, please visit their website at deartexas.info. I'm Alex Anthony, your announcer. Have a great day.